Hello, JPU family. Welcome to another episode of Jamaica Politics Uncovered. I hope that you guys had a good weekend. We're back with another exciting program. Tonight, we have Senator Marlon Morgan here with us again. He's going to be joining us to talk about some things you need to hear about. Remember the debate, the debate regarding the budget is still ongoing. The Prime Minister hasn't spoken yet, so we're still in the middle of this whole thing. And there's information that you need to hear. Some information has been twisted, and the senator is here to clear it all up tonight. So, guys, make sure when you come in, you hit the like button. Make sure that you invite a friend. Let us get started. Senator Morgan, welcome back to Jamaica Politics.
Hi, good evening, Natalie. Let me say good evening to your viewers and all those who are tuning in, both here in Jamaica and, of course, in the diaspora or across the diaspora.
Yes. So, how are you doing? How was your weekend?
Well, I'm good. I'm good. I had a pretty good weekend. Went out of town to attend to some um, family business.
Yeah.
I trust you yourself had a good weekend.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
But of course, while we're at it, we're taking note of the developments here in um, Jamaica and
Mm-hmm.
elsewhere around the world, particularly there in the United States. And we saw some interesting developments over the weekend. Lots of propaganda pieces, people making videos pertaining to CIA documents, all kinds of stuff. But
Oh my
as we would say,
God.
it's all happening, and we expect it to because we are increasingly drawing closer to that all important date, yes, in terms of elections being constitutionally due by September of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the throes of the budget process at present. The budget debate is on in earnest, and we're just delighted to be able to share with stakeholders. And we're kicking it off tonight in that vein yet again. So it's good
Yes,
to be on.
yes. Now, Senator, the opposition spokesman, Julian Robinson, on
Yeah,
finance, said some things during his debate.
yeah.
Um, I think I'm not gonna say too much. I'm just gonna let you, lay that out to the people and say what needs to be said.
All right. Before we get to that though, there's
Mm-hmm.
some important bit of information that we'd like to just present and context. So as you're aware, the government is at year number, well, this is budget number 10 for this administration, having taken office in March of
Mm-hmm.
2016. Now, this is the 10th budget with no net new taxes. It is
Mm-hmm.
the ninth budget with no new taxes. And I believe this is something that is commendable. It augurs well for Jamaica. It augurs well for our business community because, as you know, when you can rest assured as an entrepreneur, as a business, proprietor, that government will not be doing things that you as a business operator or a business interest may find disruptive, that
Yes.
affords you a certain degree of stability, ease of mind, a certain degree of certainty, and the kind of anxiety, fear, and trepidation that would have gripped business people and consumers generally in the past is not the case at present, to the extent that we have nine consecutive years of no new taxes. And the finance minister, Jamaica's first woman finance minister, took to
Mm-hmm.
her feet in the parliament last Tuesday, Natalie, and opened the budget debate. And she came away with no fewer than 21, what she called good news stories.
Mm-hmm.
But before we come to some of those, I'm going to go back to the Julian Robinson point now.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of context for the listeners and viewers, right? The parliamentary opposition has been hard pressed, certain in recent times, to come to the fore with its platform because an opposition is essentially a government in waiting. These are people who are seeking to displace or take the job of the incumbents, right?
True.
They have been holding their cards to their chest for quite some time. And the more they speak, is the more we're coming to understand why. Now, there are elements of what was expressed and espoused by Julian on Thursday that is worthy of consideration and continued debate because it's not stupid. However, there are aspects of what he has said that I find particularly concerning. But also, there was an item of news this evening here in Jamaica, Natalie, where
Mm-hmm.
Senator Damon Crawford was speaking to a group of, well, to PNP supporters down in Junction, St. Elizabeth, where he, among other things, indicated that the PNP, in terms of one of the plans it is coming with, is going to ensure that there's a business per household. So what he said, he essentially framed overlaps in their view as being counterproductive. So what he's saying is that if you have a household and two sisters own a bar, meaning separate bars,
Mm-hmm.
and they are basically, in his view, cannibalizing each other. So it is best to restrict or to have that household being limited to one business. So in other words,
What?
I think that in the way other people operate, because as you know, in the Asian community, for example, the Chinese business operators, they tend to consolidate, they tend to be very collaborative, which is admirable. Yeah. They
Yeah.
purchase in bulk, they're able to benefit naturally from economies of scale, for example, because if we bring in a container and we are having an operation and we collaborate with each other, we are all the things that come in that container, we get it at a cheaper price because we're buying in bulk and so on. So what
Mm-hmm.
Damon suggested is that if you have two sisters who are in a yard and Michelle a fair bar and Denise a fair bar over there, so he is essentially suggesting that they're cannibalizing each other, and the next PNP administration would essentially discourage that. It is promoting a strategy of one business per household. Now, the challenge with that, because as I started out by saying, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
when people harmonize and consolidate, there may be value in doing that. Because as I
Mm-hmm.
said before, in the way other people do it. You're in the United States, Natalie, you should know
Mm-hmm.
how the Jewish community operate, for example. They look out for each other, um, they support each other, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in relation to what Damon suggested, however, we here in Jamaica, we operate a free market economy and a free market system. We
Yes.
operate on the basis of free market principles. So, particularly in a context where we are a democratic system of governance, it cannot be that government is proposing to infringe on people, to foist itself on people, or to impose itself on people by determining what happens to people at a household in
Mm-hmm.
relation to their free will, the exercise of their free will in conducting a business. So I think, like so many other things we hear from Damien comes from a place where he means well. A part of his challenge essentially is that he considers himself so well read and so bright that in instances it's almost as though he's too bright for his own good. So what, based on what came across from Damien, Senator Crawford last evening, the
Mm-hmm.
suggestion that one business per household now is challenging because people should have the free will. If I am a barber, my brother went to Hart as well and he is good at barbering. And if me want to do my thing, yes, so, and my brother do film thing run at the back of the yard, we should be able to do that. Though we may be seen as cannibalizing each other because we're going to be competing for business. That's all. When a man
Yeah.
with him bicycle and jump off it and want a trim because I'm a run go do an interview for a job, for example, my brother has a barbershop offering, and so do I. But that's how markets work. And I don't know if a part of their challenge on that side is that based on their, ideological, the ideology to which they're wedded, they're not as appreciative of market dynamics as they ought to. Because I would want to see Jamaican businesses and families be more collaborative,
Yeah.
but know that in life, sometimes you have to, pursue your own path, especially for a peaceful life. So instead of you and your sister having a kick off, or you and another member of the household having an argument and bangarang, it is better for you to pursue. But the fundamental challenge with what the gentleman suggested, Natalie, was that government would invariably be getting into the business of foisting itself on people's exercise of their free will in a democratic society and in a market-driven economy. But we're not focusing too much on them, man. I want to come to a point, one of the points Julian made in his contribution to the budget debate this past Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jamaica this time, Natalie, as we have seen several times over in the past, is at a point where interest rates, what is happening at our financial institutions, yes,
Yeah.
are a bit high. Indeed, coming out of COVID, based on the global economy being in recession, recovering from COVID as it were, based
Inflation. Mm-hmm.
exactly based on the stark increases in global shipping and logistics in terms of prices. You had increases in shipping costs that had a knock-on effect on the price of goods. So the price of basic goods and other commodities that are shipped across the world increased coming out of COVID, right? So during that period, you found that interest rates increased. Interest rates were up, prices were high, inflation was high. And interest rate tends to track inflation in that it goes up as inflation goes up. Now, our central bank here in Jamaica, we have an independent central bank here in Jamaica. It hasn't always been the case. In the past 3 or so years, we are now at a point where we have what is called the central bank independence. That was one of the legacy, that is rather one of the legacies of Dr. Nigel Clark. So now, the central bank, based on what the central bank does, that usually sends signals to, and the financial institutions usually take their cue from what is referred to, Natalie, as the policy rate. So the policy rate from the BOJ has been lowered over the past 9 or so months in successive iterations of action by the BOJ. The point we're at now is that whilst the Bank of Jamaica has lowered its benchmark interest rate or its policy rate, the banks have not necessarily responded in like manner. And this is the opposite. This is the flip side of what happened when things were in the other direction. So just to be clear, when interest rates were going up, especially in the immediate aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and Jamaica and other economies were, essentially recovering, the banks responded soon o'clock, very, very quick o'clock, when the interest rates are go up. When the interest rates are coming down now, they have not been responding in as rapid and precipitous a manner as the business community, consumers, and other stakeholders would like them to. It is just like when people run a business and you would go to your business, a business place, and you see them put up a sign on the door or on the wall that says, "Dear customers, due to an increase in the price of our raw materials, we have to effect price increases. Sorry for any inconvenience caused, blah, blah, blah." The businesses are usually quick to respond to inflationary pressures and increased prices. But in instances when prices are reduced, we don't have that pass on reduction to customers, which is quite unfair, because when the thing increase, you move quick o'clock. When the thing come back down, you're recalcitrant, you're not keen on moving similarly. Anyway, among financial institutions now, that is essentially the charge, that they have moved interest rates up when it was going up, and now that there's something will come back down, them now respond appropriately. So in the parliament, Julian was making, well, he brought a prescription, a suggestion that, listen, one of the things we need to do or consider, or he committed that the next PNP government would essentially pursue a strategy to get the banks to respond in desired ways to lower interest rates, because Lower interest rates are the lifeline of your small business sector in particular and the economy in general. So what Julian is suggesting is that the next PNP government, as far as he and Mark Golding and the PNP essentially are concerned, yeah, would essentially leverage the deposits that government has in the banking system. Because as you know, Natalie, the
Mm-hmm.
government is one of the largest players in any economy,
Mm-hmm.
right? So government, through its public bodies, for example, do does hold money in the financial system. You have investments accounts, you have holdings at commercial banks, you name it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what he's suggesting is that the PNP would strategically leverage government holdings at financial institutions so that they would make the funds that are sitting in the various accounts at the two leading institutions, for example, Scotia and NCB, where interest rates have not been as competitive as they ought to be, they would move money around and so on. Now, the idea with that is similar to the suggestion expressed by Damian Crawford. That is government going outside of its remit, going outside of its bounds, and taking onto itself something that is not appropriate and ideal in a market economy. So I started where I started in terms of interest rates to make the point that we are all agreed on what we should have, which is the banking system responding in a more appropriate way in terms of lowering interest rates. We all want that to happen. There's
Mm-hmm.
a fundamental difference, however, Natalie, in terms of the strategy that PNP is proposing to get to that destination and what is happening at present, right? Now, in a market economy, it is very dangerous. It can be very counterproductive. It can be very disruptive if government using tools at its disposal, in this case, the PNP is suggesting to set up a system where the money is placed at the various institutions based on the competitiveness of the interest rates. Now that sounds good because it would appear to a listener as though that is solving a problem. The truth of the matter is, though, that will simply take us back to the period of private placements and sweetheart deals where government decides to take up billions of dollars, for example. Let us say you have some cash rich public bodies like the Port Authority of Jamaica or the Urban Development Corporation, UDC, or even HART, for example, and others. When you take up NHT money that is in investments and so on, National Insurance Fund money, NIF, when you take those resources and go and put it down at place X or place Y, what you are doing is acting as government in the market in a way that would cause other competitors and players in the market to cry foul. That would be government taking onto itself, yes, government arrogating onto itself a role that it ought not to have in a market economy, in a democratic society. So we have had examples of that in the past. It was counterproductive, and it is precisely what got us into some of the issues that we got into in the 90s and into the 2000s in terms of a set of people, being the banking community, benefiting, as it were, from the high interest rate regime. So now, just to give the listeners some context, while everybody would want to get to the same destination, which is lower interest rates, which would enable people in the manufacturing sector, people in the goods producing sector, farmers, you name it, to access money at a cheaper rate to do their business operations. The way the PNP is proposing that we go about it is problematic. And
Mm-hmm.
you will recall, Natalie, that many persons, yourself included, have charged that there is a particular nefarious agenda to Mark Golding and Peter Bunting's politics.
Mm-hmm.
Many detractors of Mark Golding and Peter Bunting, they allege that these gentlemen are really in the politics to use the politics as a vehicle to the advancement of their personal economic and financial agenda. Now, these two gentlemen, Natalie, have an interest. Yes, they are essentially the principals, the main investors in a company called Proven.
Yes.
That is known. right? Now, if it is that these guys are in a position where where they can influence government policy and government actions, because if you are prime minister, finance minister, or government in any capacity, you are essentially able to do things, the very things that Julian is suggesting to be done in terms of seeking to lower interest rates, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you would find yourself in a situation, what you would find in that case is that Mark Bowling and Peter Bunting would be exposing themselves, as it were, to allegations of favoritism or inappropriate action, if it is that placements are made with the very entity that they have a financial interest in, that being proven. Now, the idea is that, yes,
Mm-hmm.
persons allege, and there are persons who essentially speculate that the ultimate mission of these two gentlemen, Mark Bowling and Peter Bunting, is to use political power in the country as a vehicle to their personal economic and financial well-being. We know, as you have done in several episodes, Natalie, that
Mm-hmm.
the financial institution with which they are closely associated is hemorrhaging at this time. You have done copious work.
Yes.
I don't know
And
if you want to make a comment on
yes,
it.
let me
Point.
just let the viewers know
Okay,
that
background and
the,
context, yeah.
let me just let the viewers know that the first time I started looking into this conflict of interest, because it is, was when a former PNP minister and historian, Arnold Bertram,
Yeah, Scree Bertram, yeah.
yes, in 2019 wrote an article saying that this is an unprecedented conflict of interest in our politics. That these guys together, being shareholders and business partners in this company,
Yeah.
you put them near the finance ministry and at the leadership of the country. What is there to stop them? Or can they adhere to the constitution and what the rules are? And
And not,
he had
yeah.
some grave concerns about that. He raised that concern.
And not only that, because remember now, where conflict of interest is concerned, the very appearance of it is contentious and problematic, because these guys would be in a situation where they would be the political masters in terms of being, head of government and powerful people in government, while
Yeah.
at the same time having this vested financial interest in this entity called Proven Investments, right? And an
Mhm.
entity that, based on their balance sheet, some of the work that you have done, Natalie, you
Mhm.
have unearthed that this entity, the value of their share price is plummeting,
Yeah.
and all of the other things that you have adduced. I'll leave you to, convey
Yes.
to our viewers.
So they lost 65.2% in earning last year, millions of dollars, and they were forced to close two offshore locations and operations.
Yeah,
So they are not in the best standing where their financial health and wealth are concerned.
that's right.
So I'm actually appalled that they would want to talk to the government about macroeconomic and microeconomic. These
Yeah,
are
there you
guys who, in my view, are struggling with a little investment bank, you know?
go. Well, there you go.
So this year now, to want to form a government in a country where you're managing a big economy, I
Hmm.
just I just find something really wrong with that.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I wanted the listeners to understand context and what we're saying here, the viewers rather. In the 1990s, there was nothing, as we're seeing now, Natalie, there was nothing magical about these guys, Peter Bunting, Mark Golding, Darren Bunting. They were guys really who saw an opportunity. They had some financial endowment and they moved with it. But there was nothing magical, because many observers and commentators will tell you that yes, while some other financial institutions got into problems in the 90s and so on, certainly
Mhm.
when we had the downturn and the collapse of some financial institutions in the mid to late 90s. Their institution, DBNG at the time, Daring, Bunting, and Golding, did
Mm-hmm.
well and it kept afloat and so on. There are
Mm-hmm.
some observers, myself included, who will posit and assert that there was nothing magical about these three gentlemen. In this case, let me leave Chris Daring out of it. He is not in the ring. I punch the people who are in the ring. And the people who are in the ring who
Take
are
time with
seeking
them. Take time with them, Sid.
the people who are in the ring. That's why we come out with the thing this evening, the berry and
Yeah.
bean something. You see my
Yeah.
dude? And of course, as I know, this one is the Jamaica branded one. Because we have
Brand
the Coat of
Jamaica.
Rams one and we
Yeah.
have the JLP logo one. So
Mm-hmm.
watch me now. There was nothing I am asserting special or magical about these guys. They benefited largely from their proximity to the then Finance Minister, Dr. Omar Davies, the
Mm-hmm.
man who since had Mark Golding as his little blue-eyed baby, who he
Mm-hmm.
since, ensured that he held him close to him, put him on the constituency executive there in St. Andrew Southern, put him in, what do you call it now? The
So St.
football
Andrew.
club, the Arnett Gardens Football Club, put him
Mm-hmm.
into the runnings and the management of that whole thing. And of course, they would have used their money to help finance the club, which is good in terms of sports development and so on. We're big on sport. The youth, them who play ball down at Arnett are youth who, grow up as sufferers like many of us. And
Mm-hmm.
sports football is an avenue for them to advance and think. So we love that and we appreciate that. Whether you come from Tivoli Garden or you come from Jungle, we want sports as an avenue for youth upliftment and taking themselves and their family out of depressed and unfortunate financial circumstances. But the point we're making now is that
Mm-hmm.
Ronnie Thwaites some time ago described the destructive high interest rate policy, right, as resulting in the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich in this country since slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Just want to repeat it because there's a reason why Ronald Thwaites said that. The net effect of the high interest rate regime, the high interest rate policies of the 90s into the mid 2000s, that basically saw government paper being the only game in town. People
Mm-hmm.
like Peter Bunting and Mark Golding would just channel their resources into an entity like DB&G, trade in government paper, don't necessarily do anything in terms of activity in the real economy, right?
Yes. Yes.
Making anything or producing anything for exports. They just traded in paper while they sat on a beach and drank martini or pina coladas, for example. Zin?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that destructive period is the very thing that many of us as Jamaicans have been paying for. Our debt burden as a country came about largely out of the high interest rate regime and, of course, the profits that these guys were able to benefit from. Now, the profits to them meant increased taxes to us, yes? And their success was Jamaica's distress. That has to be understood. And Spree Bertram was spot on in my view in that piece. I
Mm-hmm.
have not seen it, I have not come across it, but I will endeavor to have a read of that because it
Mm-hmm.
must have been, an instructive bit of literature. Now, so the point is, we had a 1.0 in relation to Mark Golding and Peter Bunting in terms of their enrichment. I
Yeah.
am putting it to your viewers, Natalie, that what these guys are seeking to do in another way is to use political power in this country to advance a 2.0. You remember when I look up Pitney and a big show that come out in the early 90s, Home Alone? When
Yes.
something come out and it works well, when Home Alone shot,
We want a part two.
they decided to come with a part two, isn't it? So
Mm-hmm.
FinSac, well, not FinSac, but the 1990s, which led to FinSac, and that period into the 2000s, because so soon as their party came out of power, in September 2007, these guys saw it convenient and important to dump DBNG. Let's remember that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They
Yes.
were fine with their financial institution, their investment house throughout the 90s into the 2000s. But as soon as Omar Davies was no longer finance minister, the lock changed and a new person was there holding the purse strings. in the person of Aldershaw, these guys elected to do away with that and sell it to Scotia Bank and whatnot, and cock up them foot and,
Mm-hmm.
pump them chest. That
Move
is
things
why,
around. Mm-hmm.
which is why man able to come to us now, Natalie, and say, well, me don't make my money already.
Yes.
Marky G don't make my money already. And he wants to form government with a group of Top and Harris around him. Right?
I'm talk so, you know.
Well, there you go. We now make up
Mm-hmm.
nothing. We now make no profit. See? I him say it out of him on a mouth.
Mm-hmm.
So just to be clear, I was making the point a while ago, say, boy, when part one sell off, you see me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, chances are you're gonna try shoot out on a part two. So
Mm-hmm.
invariably, I believe a part of what these guys are trying to do, especially in this context where they have a considerable financial motive to want to help the financial institution with which they are associated. Because just to be clear, well-thinking Jamaicans like myself want businesses, including proven investments and any other investment house, bank, financial institution, the man who sell jelly down at Helsha, the man who sell fry fish at Helsha Beach, the lady who sells soup and corn on the roadside, the man who jerk him chicken at Reddy's Road. We want people who are engaged in business, taking a risk and doing business. We want them to make money. We want them to be successful. What
Mm-hmm.
we do not want, however, is a misdirected and an inimical use of political power and governance power in the country to effect certain outcomes which may well be to the detriment of the people of Jamaica. Because what Julian articulated on Thursday opens up an avenue for excess on the part of government. It creates an opening, Natalie, for government to be coming and intervening, doing something that really and truly government in a market economy should not be doing. Government should be allowing market forces to work themselves out. And the truth of the matter is that you should not be giving the appearance that you may well be going in a direction where you take money from NCB and Scotia, or you take investments from other investment houses, including NCB Capital Markets, and essentially go and situate them at places that you are probably more favorable to, ostensibly under the guise of getting lower interest rates or benefiting from lower interest rates. Let the market deal with that. So the point we're making is that as many of Mark Golding and Peter Bunting's detractors, people like Karen Cross, who I must give a shout out to this evening, by the way. I really enjoyed her episode this past Tuesday, and I appreciate the endorsement and shout out she gave to me. People
Mm-hmm.
like Michelle Stern, people like Liz, people like yourself, Natalie,
Mm-hmm.
who have long made the point that these guys are essentially up to no good. These guys are essentially in this game of politics to use it as a vehicle for the consolidation and expansion of their economic and financial powers. You guys in the who were PNP members and people sympathetic to the PNP, and I
Mm-hmm.
suspect some people still are, because the idea is that as far as you're concerned, what exists now is not necessarily the PNP. This is just the Rise United version of the PNP. So
Mm-hmm.
what the detractors, yourself and others included, have long indicated, Natalie, is that these guys are not just up to no good, but they're seeking to get to a certain destination on the back of the people of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
They did well in round one, and it seems to me that they're coming back for a round two. And as you know, we should not let that happen. Derek Morgan would say, what can go so? The long and
Yes.
short of it is that we should ensure here in Jamaica, which is why we are on programs like these, which is why you have your channel, your platform, Natalie, and every day you get up and you are driven by your dedication and your patriotism. You are off Jamaica's shores at present, but
Mm-hmm.
you are Jamaican at heart. You are Jamaican through and through. And though you are operating in another country, you
Mm-hmm.
know that I say a thing there, and you are Jamaican through and through. And in the fine Jamaican traditions, you're being a warrior for this blessed land of ours, Jamaica land we love. So the idea is that we need to resist and ensure that these guys stay as far from political power in this country as the East is from the West, because they are essentially seeking, or they are sending signals that basically telegraph to us clearly. It's like, when you're letting out the puss out of the bag, there's
Mm-hmm.
something that many of us have long considered in our minds, but we're now beginning to hear it. Any move, any suggestion that government begins to intervene and be interventionist makes it very clear that, listen, it exposes these people to the prospect of enriching themselves through clever use of the powers of politics, meaning political powers. Because as we know now, many of us would have known it back then as well, Omar Davies used to utilize the then DB&G. Private placements were a thing. The then Office of the Contractor General did some work some time ago. And in that work, a finding was made that the way they went about their placement of money and transacting between government and DB&G, it, was a corruption enabling scheme. Essentially, the notion of sweetheart deals came up as an allegation in that particular probe by the then Officer of the Contractor General. So the idea is that we should not allow these guys to come and do a part two. We find it curious that, unlike what is happening at present, where you bring down interest rates, Natalie, and this is now for the edification of the listeners and viewers.
Mm-hmm.
Several things have to be happening to help drive down interest rates. We have been there before, and we can certainly get back there. There's a challenge, however, and this is where these guys are not being as honest with the people, I believe, as they ought to be. Now, there's a particular gentleman who won the US presidential elections in November of 2024, Natalie.
Mm-hmm.
With Donald Trump's incumbency, we're all looking on, we're all stakeholders in the global economy, as it were. And it is very clear to us, yes, that things are a bit topsy-turvy right now, in the sense that Donald Trump is pursuing what he considers to be in the US's best interest. He has essentially been waging what we could describe loosely, Natalie, as tariff wars, trade wars,
Yes.
which has a particular impact. It's at a minimum,
Mm-hmm.
the policies of the Trump administration, insofar as the trade wars and the tariff issues between Canada and Mexico and you name it, even further
Mm-hmm.
afield, Europe and China, Russia, you name it, that is having the effect of affecting some, or causing some, uncertainty. Markets can be jittery, and markets get jittery quite easily. And
Yes.
not only can markets be jittery, people who operate in markets, for example, the Jamaican banking system or the Jamaican financial institutions, they pause, they look on to observe what is happening further afield, to inform what they do here and now. So they know that Mr. Trump is president of the United States. Any little jump off can happen at any point in terms of trade related jump off, right? And so at present, the Jamaican business community, certainly the banking system, seems to be in a holding pattern, which is why interest rates are not coming down as sharply as they ought to be. The central bank has cut its rates, but to the extent, Natalie, that there are these tariff wars going around, the outlook on the economy certainly in the foreseeable future is that we may have an inflationary environment.
Mm-hmm.
Tariff wars, prices go up. That's what that means. Because Trump got put on a thing, as was such man who asked the girl, told the girl that she looked big for 15.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, such man want to add a thing or put on a little thing on food imports.
Mm-hmm.
When the US puts on a tariff on Canadian products, it makes Canadian products more expensive in terms of the nominal price point and in real terms as well in the United States. When the Canadian Prime Minister, the gentleman who was recently installed or inaugurated rather, when he does the same, because this is what happens in the international community, you have what is called retortion. So you thump me in my face, me I go thump you back in your face.
Mm-hmm.
You will lick me, me I go lick you back. Zin? So when Mexico add on for them thing, Canada do the same, and everybody is responding to everybody else's tariff increases. That will generally create an inflationary environment, Natalie, where the cost of products, commodities in particular, will be increased. The
Yes.
banks, our banks here in Jamaica, are taking their cues from that. They are looking on, and that is why I am describing what is happening at present as a kind of a wait and see game, a kind of a holding pattern. So,
Mm-hmm.
although the Bank of Jamaica, here in Jamaica, has reduced the policy rate, the benchmark rates, and whatnot, our banks are a bit cautious. They're not too keen because they are mindful as to what is happening in Washington. So the
Mm-hmm.
truth is, Jamaica has some constraints at present, certainly from a market force standpoint, to having the considerable and precipitous reductions in interest rates that we would want to see. However, what I know that some of the banks do is that they seek to have some direct relationships with some of their clients, especially in the micro, small, and medium-sized business sector, where more favorable rates are given to some clients. So, in a marketplace, based on historic relationships, based on what you call the client customer relationship, the customer bank relationship that some of these banks have, though their rate may be 8%, for example, a particular business may be a business that gets loans from them at 6%.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, certain concessions, certain discounts that are afforded to certain customers based on their track record of repayment, which is how credit works in the United States, as
Yeah.
you'll appreciate, Natalie. Because the idea is this: if you have demonstrated, a degree of loyalty, you have demonstrated that you are responsible, you service your card note in a timely manner, those kinds of things, you
Mm-hmm.
may be in pole position to benefit from considerable discounts or concessions, certainly, for example, in interest rates at your financial institution, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is that Jamaica, based on what is happening in the global north, is not likely to see precipitous reductions in interest rates because of just the sheer uncertainty and the instability with the wars, trade wars, and the tariff spats between Trump and others. Now, technically, though, in a theoretical sense, there's a particular framework within you make a case for reduced interest rates. Here in Jamaica, we have what is called inflation targeting. Just today, this evening, Jamaica has learned that our inflation rate, our point to point inflation rate, excuse me, has
Mm-hmm.
fallen. For the month
That's
of
good.
February, the
Mm-hmm.
outturn for our point to point inflation came in at was 4.4%. For the corresponding period last year, I think it was what, 4.7%. So the idea is that we have sent the central bank doing inflation targeting here in Jamaica because, as your viewers ought to appreciate, Natalie, inflation is a tax on people, it's a tax on consumers. When
Yes.
we have $5 and the basket of goods that my $5 could have buy last week, this time Monday when me I did up on the show, yeah, so it becomes different. If I could have get 5 things with my $5 last week, inflation may be of such, Natalie, that me only get 4 things now with my same $5. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
spending the same money, but me I go on with a little bit of something, just like how some people saw a little bit of blood. See?
Mm-hmm.
Watch me now. Well, I don't. Anyway, we never have not focus on the locus in the night. We just deal with it grimy and go through.
Mm-hmm.
So watch me now, sister. In managing inflation helps you to make a case for reduced interest rates because, as I had said before, interest rates track inflation. So when you keep inflation stable, we have targeted inflation here in Jamaica. The targeted inflation band established by the central bank is within the range of 4 to 6%. That's what they see as being tolerable. That's what they see as, being manageable, and it will secure levels of growth while at the same time it not kill off people. So
Right.
essentially, inflation is tolerable. The 4 to 6% band is tolerable, and that is what is being targeted. Because as I said before, it not to kill off people, but at the same time, it is doing what inflation should do from a
Right.
growth standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
So now, the inflation in Jamaica is at levels that would cause interest rates to come down. The government's management of the macroeconomy is happening in ways that should also see interest rates come down. Tax revenues are performing, people are in jobs, people are have getting more money in their pockets based on the suite of programs and policies of the government. People are benefiting from tax breaks. The foreign exchange market is stable. You don't see the dollar shooting up to 180, then coming down to
Yeah.
60. You don't have any topsy-turvy craziness. Like when I picnic up on ride at the fair, and them on the carousel or them on the roller coaster, and they're basically getting dizzy. The dizziness now really keeping in Jamaica. And for the past 9 years, the dizziness has not been happening. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
People have been getting back tax break. People have been benefiting from reductions in income tax based on increases over successive years in the income tax threshold and so on, right? So the theoretical economic management tools and outcomes that would help to drive down interest rates are not, well, are happening. Those things are happening. But as because of the thing I explained earlier with what is happening in the United States, that is the reason why you're not necessarily seeing as sharp of a decrease in interest rates as we should be. What I would suggest to the PNP and what the PNP should join with the government in doing, though, Natalie,
Mm-hmm.
is in order to kind of create conditions for reduced interest rates instead of doing what these guys are suggesting to do, which may well have the effect of putting money approven to bailout proven. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
What should be happening is a campaign to urge customers, because in a market economy, we know cash is king, but the customers are kings and queens. If a vast proportion of us decide that, listen, to send a signal to the banking community, we are moving our money from Yasso and we are going to put it there. So invariably, the action of customers, right,
Mm-hmm.
would cause or send signals to the market and cause responses in the marketplace. So if me and you drive a country, Natalie, I will stop a Faith Spend, and five people sell jerk chicken and them a sell soup and them a sell roast corn. See? I will stop on one vendor sell for $10, another vendor sell for $9, another vendor sell for $8, another vendor sell for $7, as the case may be, till we get to the five vendors. But each vendor sell for $1 less. See?
Mm-hmm.
If everybody who come like me and you and pull up in the vehicle and come out of the vehicle and go buy jerk chicken basically from the man who has sell for $5 as opposed to $10, or for $6 as opposed to $10, the $10 man and the $9 vendor have to go start take them cue from that. Because why is he there with jerk chicken?
Yeah.
He want to sell jerk chicken. He
Mm-hmm.
not there because he not nothing to do. The man who has sell the jerk chicken for $10, he want to make sales too. But
Mm-hmm.
if everybody, myself and you and Karen and everybody in the country, a pass Faith Spend and pull up and decide, so listen, at the $6 man where I buy from, the $10 man at some point I forgot start reconsidering and say, rated. So that $10 thing like it now to work.
Mm-hmm.
He is likely to respond. So customers have power. That's the point we're making. Customers have power, and customers can demand of them, of what you call it now, their service providers or goods providers, the companies that they're transacting business with, certain actions. We know that price is not the only determinant in a marketplace, because as we know, Natalie, sometimes you may do business or you may go to a place. For example, my wife loves Secret Hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Secret is a property that is fairly higher in terms of the price point. But my
Mm-hmm.
wife is big on
On
service.
quality.
She's
Mm-hmm.
big on quality. She's big on service. So if you
Mm-hmm.
got one Kaba Kaba place, not saying any place is Kaba Kaba, I'm just hypothetically making the point that if the customer service experience at a place, although it is cheaper, is of such that you don't end up enjoying your little getaway. Because if you're a gentleman, go one
Mm-hmm.
place, you want to enjoy yourself, you want to have a good time, you want when
Mm-hmm.
you go to the restaurant for dinner, the service from the waitress is so pleasant and accommodating. When you're at the swim up bar at the hotel, you want the barmaid, the bartender to be so accommodating. I always have good conversation with the people at bars when I go to hotels, because the first thing I'm always ask you is like, where you're from. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
always pleased to make them know that I'm from here. I'm from, the corporate area, basically. Because when
Mm-hmm.
they see at the hotel, it's like people just automatically assume,
Things
say
are
you're
foreign you
a
come
black
from.
American. Exactly. So
Mm-hmm.
me talking in my
Really?
language. Me
Wow.
talking in my language, of course, as you know, me just come
Yeah.
across like Mark Golding, like me is, a
Tapanares.
non-Jamaican speak and thing. So we deal with the thing normal and orthodox and things. So the idea is that some customers in the marketplace are big on other things and not just price, because you may prefer to sell to spend $10 more, which is why some people travel first class or premium economy or business class on a flight.
Mm-hmm. People pay
Sometimes,
for good service, man, and that's why a lot of these companies, their signature is we put customers first and
there we go.
focused on
Because you'll
customer.
hear some people tell you, Spirit is a low budget carrier.
Yeah.
Frontier is one of those low budget carriers too. But some people will prefer to go with the Deltas and so and so and so. Southwest is a low budget carrier as well. But because some of these carriers, based on their baggage costs and policies, and just based on the general customer service and just the look and feel of the experience, they
Mm-hmm.
may prefer to go with something that has a higher price point. So I simply make that segue or that deviation to come back to the point that we know that although customers are powerful, some people may elect to stay with a particular bank based on their historical relationship with the bank. They may stay with them based on essentially the service provision that is there. Because if you go to somewhere and you get to wait in a particular facility, for example, good ambiance and so on, you may just place a premium on that as a person, which is
Yes.
why people should try to deliver customer service and a customer experience that is first rate and first class. So
True.
the simple point you're making is that we know their suggestion regarding interest rates. We know the PNP suggestion as well regarding fixed water rate. Now, as you have heard, as some of our viewers may have heard from the Prime Minister, and they may have heard from even Matthew Samuda as well, the NWC customer database is
Mm.
linked to a residence. If you live at 5 Chisholm Avenue, if a pensioner, Marsha Smith, lives at 5 Chisholm Avenue, although Marsha Smith may go up abroad because she gone, or she move go elsewhere, she gonna live with her daughter in Texas, for example, and then rent out 5 Chisholm Avenue to a tenant. That tenant essentially would be benefiting from this incentive being proposed by the PNP. What
Mm-hmm.
we're saying is that the the measure the PNP is proposing in terms of a fixed water rate for pensioners, though it sounds like an admirable thing to do, by virtue of the sheer reality here in Jamaica, it would be an inefficient use of fiscal policy, because the idea is that not only would the system be susceptible to fraud and abuse, you would actually have your incentive going to people that it is not intended for. In other words, consider food stamp or welfare in the United States. If we have a food stamp and the food stamp is to go to a needy family, a needy household, this like a Hispanic lady with our 4 kids and whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
Them, they're the people who the food stamp is geared towards and should be going towards. When the food stamp gets misdirected to a person who can actually afford to sort out themselves a supermarket a week time and month time, that
Mm-hmm.
is an inefficient use of our tax dollars. That is why this one of the strategies of this government, Natalie, has been to devise ways and means to effect direct cash transfers to people. So it's a very targeted use of relief. It's a targeted provision of relief. When we had COVID, people got set cash and care cash business entities based on certain, we call it now, based on certain stipulations and parameters. They essentially got relief and some support. Obviously, the relief and the support provided during COVID was not mega dollars. It's not something that, would have um, seen people being hunky dory and be able to cock up them foot on a beach,
Mm-hmm.
like Top and Iris people. However, it was an important and useful intervention on the part of government because people were genuinely going through hard times. People were genuinely facing hardship because you can just imagine how tumultuous and dislocating, right? How
Mm-hmm.
disruptive the global pandemic was because a lot of people who made money based on entertainment activities and sell your soup and corn on the roadside and so on, that just never did a keep. We have feel lucky like Papi and all these things.
Mm-hmm.
So you can just imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wouldn't mind at some point fielding questions from some of our viewers. And I know you have a style where, on occasions you try to facilitate the perspectives of some of our people. As you know, we're in budget season, so there's a lot that would have been said and a lot that, people may wish to discuss and chime in about.
Yeah, so you don't mind taking a few questions from the audience here
Yeah,
tonight.
and any question that you have. So remember, I'm here. I'm on the platform. You would have noted the discussion we have had. You have done a considerable body of work, Natalie, and research in particular on some of these, you know,
Yeah.
the whole financial situation confronting proven investments, how these
Mm-hmm.
guys have fared from a business standpoint. I give you another example too. I'll share another example with our viewers. You will recall in recent weeks and months, Natalie, the embattled PNP General Secretary being up and about the place, talking about the food import bill in our country.
Mm-hmm.
How hypocritical it is that his bosses, Golding and Bunting, have an interest in an entity called Rerum, which Omar Newell, the PNP's designated standard bearer in St. Mary's Central, manages. It's the very entity at which the former PNP caretaker in Central Kingston was employed to, ostensibly based on what he reported in the media. He served there as some finance person, accountant, or whatnot. So the idea is that these guys who are in the business of importing commodities into Jamaica, I gather they bring in commodities like rice. I know them bring in some beverages
Drinks.
from Trinidad,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever it is that these guys bring in, they are adding to Jamaica's food import bill. But at the same time, are going to suggest
How ironic.
the
Oh
food
God,
import bill
man.
is too high. So imagine if they were to have state power, what they would do is to perhaps ensure that licenses for the importation of commodities like Irish potato, red peas,
Mm-hmm.
pork belly, salt mackerel, pig tail, turkey neck, chicken back, you name it. They would perhaps ensure that the licenses go to who?
Themself and them friends. There's the conflict of interest, Marlon, that
Yeah,
exists that
palpable.
you and the viewers them know that I have been talking about for a long time. It is overwhelming, and I just want to say this
Mhm.
with an integrity body. that was so big on we need to do what is right, we need to do what is in the interest of the people, no conflict of interest, no corruption. How is it that they have not been concerned about some of the issues raised about these guys and their financial activities of the past and of now and wanting to, hold the reins of government?
Well, yeah. Well, put it this way. One of the things to be noted, is that people who may well be involved in shady things
Mm,
are people who know how to circumvent scrutiny.
mm,
As our viewers should know and appreciate this evening, Mark Golding, our opposition leader, against whom we cast no aspersion on this program,
mm-hmm,
he has situated his largesse, meaning his wealth for the most part, in what is called a trust. And I gather that these are, for the most part, some offshore holdings. That's so? And as
yes.
we said last week at one point, even the residents at Cherry Drive, I think it is, where our opposition leader, the good gentleman, Tapanari Mark Golding, is domiciled, that dwelling is not in the Tapanaris's name. It is apparently in the name of his three children.
Mm-hmm.
And so when when they're up and about the country, thumping them chests and talking about which leader not certified, but which leader certified, they
Mm-hmm.
should take the opportunity to remind the Jamaican people as to how Mark Golding came by his wealth, because his financial success inured to Jamaica's financial distress. We need to understand that. Mark Golding's wealth, with the money where him purport, say him done make already,
Mm-hmm.
and him not come for scrape because him money done make already. The money where him done make already came at the expense of a proliferated and suffocating debt to GDP ratio in this country. And our viewers and listeners should understand that when we talk about a debt to GDP ratio and the cost to service the debt in Jamaica, what it means is that at one point, as much as 57 cents of every dollar in Jamaica went to service debt, and 43 cents of every dollar that remained had to do everything else, including paying public sector workers and, of course, putting road repairs in place, servicing our hospitals, ensuring that medication is in there and all them things there. So we need to understand where we are coming from as a country, to the point where more of our resources, less is going to service debt and more is going to do actual things for the people, which is why certain people are mad out, which is why some people can have a meltdown in Hartford, Connecticut, because they know that the government has been using the dividends gleaned from Jamaica's collective sacrifice over the years. Yes, because the debt, when we talk about the debt coming down, it is to be understood that is all of us tax dollars ended up paying that debt. The debt that Omar Davies racked up, the debt that people like Mark Golding and Peter Bunting, as some of our major bondholders in this country, benefited from, that debt is all of us paid off. So even some baby who never did born it at the time end up
Mm-hmm.
paying taxes in this country and help to be paying down that particular stock of debt. So as far as we know, these guys are to be kept from state power in this country, as far as I said before, as the East is from the West.
So let me ask you this, Senator.
Yeah.
We have seen most of us here on this live. We know the role they played and what happened in the 90s and so forth.
Hmm.
When we say things like this, let me just move this off the screen. When we say Julian, who is the opposition spokesperson on finance,
Yeah.
telling Jamaica that the PNP being led by Mark Golding and Peter Bunting promises a better economy for all. I mean, how does this sound to you? You know?
Let me tell you what Julian's big problem, Natalie. I'm going to use a very powerful imagery and analogy. Julian's challenge, and that of the PNP, is that they have no credibility, they have no coherent and cogent and compelling policy platform,
Mm-hmm.
and the track record is not there. Now, the PNP is like a man who draw down on a woman
Mm-hmm.
and him a look the woman. See, the woman don't have her man already, however, but him a put argument to the woman. And all of the things that him a tell the woman say him would a do and what what he would bring to the table and do for her and bring to her life. The woman, current man, her incumbent man, done do all of that already and even more. So that is the challenge these gentlemen have.
Okay, yeah.
So Mark Golding and this guy, Julian Robinson. That's a problem they have.
So
No,
them not give the woman a reason for leave our situation.
and they can't either because the woman, gentleman, Natalie Stackman, are
Mm-hmm.
go on with the things them and actually perform. He's not a perfect man,
Mm-hmm.
because yeah, some of the time him can left the domino table early and come home at night time, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
Tanya Stevens is say, you know,
Mm-hmm. But them
you know
not
that
them
song.
not make no compelling argument for me weigh out the option and say
That
adapt
that
me for do.
that is it.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, the idea is this, because they suggest a number of things that are actually already a keep. Now, Julian espoused 4 E's. One of the E's, for example, is efficiency. Just this past Friday in the Senate, Natalie, we passed what is called the Public Procurement Amendment Act.
Mm-hmm.
We have recognized in this country that government has been in the way of businesses. We understand in this country that the unwieldy and cumbersome bureaucracy in this country
Yes.
has served to create an ecosystem of inefficiency,
Mm-hmm.
and it has actually served to perhaps incentivize corruption, because when you take long to get through with a thing, you are
You
more
have to
likely
put
to
something
drop a
under the
thing
table.
off,
Mm-hmm.
expedite the thing. You go
Mm-hmm.
down a war for clear barrel, for example. And I'm speaking about, for example, primarily back in the day when a man would have got a wharf and you could have, drop a
Mm-hmm.
thing, pay somebody a thing to kind of accelerate or expedite the pace and the ease with which you got your shipment down at
Mm-hmm.
the wharf. So inefficiency and bureaucracy has been an albatross around our neck in this country. And it perhaps ought to have come sooner, but alas, we are where we are. A new procurement act has been sorted out. One of the letters in the Prime Minister's Aspire program, Aspire initiative, which is our pivot from macroeconomic stability to accelerated and more sustained and robust levels of economic growth. The R in Aspire speaks to reducing bureaucracy.
Mm-hmm.
The Prime Minister articulated the commitment or the initiative. He articulated the thrust in that regard, and he acted on it by directing that the Public Procurement Act be sorted out. That has now been passed by both the lower house and the upper house. It will subsequently go to the Governor General and be passed into law, and that will, that I go keep basically. In
Okay.
January, the Prime Minister established what is called the Speed Task Force, right? I believe SPEED stands for Streamlining um, Public Efficiency for Economic Development. SPEED, streamlining
Mm-hmm.
processes, I think it is, for efficiency and economic development. Yeah. So now, the woman, current man, I go on with some things, actually I do some things that are going to solve the problem and, fix the issues confronted.
Uh-oh. We have a little glitch here. Hmm. We have a little glitch, guys. Um, let me just give it a few seconds to see if the senator will come back. In the meantime, I think I want to get on the phone and start taking some calls. Let me see. Senator, please rejoin. Please rejoin. We're talking with Senator Marlon Morgan, spokesperson of the Jamaica Labour Party and government. I guess we can do a little humor in the meantime. This is the spokesperson for the PNP, Nikisha Burchell. And she's being crowned by JPU as Miss Communication. Oh, no, get it? Miscommunication. She's the PNP's problem and the communication that Mark Golding spoke about, So, what do you guys think? Not Miss World, not Miss whatever, Miss Universe, miscommunication. And yes, we spelled that one there properly. Miscommunication. Oh, Jesus. Come back in, Senator. The people are wait for ask you a few questions. Miscommunication. The 4 M's. I saw it go? Yes. But we're not giving advice over here. So they're going to have to seek those 4 M's on their own. But the senator properly outlined it last time he was here. What's the secret to good communication skills? The 4 M's. He's perfected it. Here he comes. Welcome back, Senator Morgan.
Natalie.
Yes. Welcome back.
I don't know. I've lost power at my residence, but I don't know anything set. The program takes precedence. And as Barbara Streisand said, we may have to speak in the dark and beat them with the broom.
A big tune that,
Yeah,
All right. Let me start take some call now. The moderator want to come in and ask a question. So, because
sure,
the moderator.
Go ahead, sister.
Yes. Good night, moderator.
Good night.
Go ahead and speak.
Good night, moderator.
Yeah. Good night, Mr. Morgan. I hear you touched on the whole thing with the government papers and bonds that such people profited greatly from. But there's this question I'd love you to answer for me, if you have any knowledge of it. Back in the time when the JLP administration come in for, you have any knowledge about a bond that was nearing maturity that was pegged to the US dollar at the time?
I don't remember the specifics of it, but I think I remember vaguely that issue, yeah. Because and there have been such securities in the past, such instruments where some of them were, linked to the US dollar, especially based on Jamaica's historical experience, where the dollar was topsy-turvy, our country's position was very weak, and so nobody would have taken out a bond that was denominated in Jamaican dollars, really.
Jamaican currency, yeah. Yeah, I remember clearly that when Nigel Clark took over the reins, there was a bond that was nearing maturity that some heavy hitters had invested in heavily. And when they looked into what it would have cost the government, remember when there was an intervention by the Bank of Jamaica where when the dollar was being driven down for a greater understanding, the dollar was going up and then we saw it coming down for a while, and people was wondering what was happening, why the dollar was coming down. And then we discovered that the dollar come down right in the time when the bond was mature, and most of who invested in that bond either get back what they invested or lost money, and the country save a lot of billions. You have try to jog your memory if you remember that period of time.
No, no, that specific development, not, you know.
Okay, because I
Bunting, not
remember that
personally.
the country was we were supposed to have a massive payout that some people would have benefited from greatly, and
Mm-hmm.
the intervention basically at the time saved the country billions of dollars. It
Yeah.
was something that I've had a discussion on early with some friends. I was just kind of jog your memory if you remember the exact
Scenario. No,
instrument.
no, no. I'd have to probably look back at that. But
Okay.
Okay.
you have
Well,
any other issue or any other perspective that you wish to bring to the fore, G?
Yeah, I mentioned it to Natalie the other night. I asked you, well, the whole country has been talking about that proposed $1 billion is supposed to go to content creator. What's your take on it?
No, content creators are enterprising people who are
I think
out
your
there.
mic is covered, Senator.
Many of them, am I sounding a bit better now? I may have been a
Yes.
bit muffled a while ago.
Yeah, better.
Very well. So content creators are at nature and that by nature rather and at heart are, you know, enterprising people. Many of them have gone on to wield considerable influence, certainly in discourse of one kind or another. Some in the political realm, some in entertainment, some in fashion, you name it. Now, the idea is that taking up government's resources, the taxpayers' resources, and facilitating incentives to this community. Based on what was announced, the Jamaica Labour Party does not know if this is the most effective use or appropriate use of this time of taxpayers' hard earned resources in a context where, Mr. Moderator, there are so many things that could otherwise be attended to, including getting more high cost and expensive equipment into our hospitals to treat with persons who have one ailment or another. So the idea is that promoting and facilitating the creative industry is actually something that this government is doing. Last year, January, I believe $1 billion was made available for the film and short videos sector. I'm trying to remember the agency through which it was made available. But essentially, it was to
Really?
facilitate culture, the creative industry and our filmmaking industry because Jamaicans, like anybody else around the world, are like their contemporaries around the world, Hollywood and Bollywood and Nollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Our filmmakers in this country have good scripts, they have good ideas, they have good plots and storylines, they have products and content that would sell off in as much as you know their contemporaries around the world. Storylines that you know packed with intrigue and the whole 9 yards that would be you know riveting and gripping to any audience. So $1 billion was provided to content creators, filmmakers, short film makers in the country. And we know that the PNP would have essentially looked at that particular initiative, and it is what is driving their suggestion now that they would use $1 billion to somehow support. It's very loose language that was used. They didn't speak in definitive terms. Mark Golding speaks in the parliament tomorrow. We don't know the degree to which he may be inclined to essentially uh, unpack it some more so that we can at least get a better sense as to the how because we note the what. So they say they're gonna do this and that and every what's it not. But what we want to hear now is the how, and what we know at a minimum is that giving $1 billion to people like Andre Stevens, Rotten Mango, and a host of others may not represent the best spend or the most effective and efficient spend of the hard-earned tax dollars in Jamaica, having regard to the myriad of deficits that we still have and the things that we could well do with that $1 billion, including purchasing more JUTC buses to ensure that ordinary, poor, working class Jamaicans do not have to wait inordinately long at the bus stop or at the bus terminus at half a tree.
Senator,
I
well
agree.
on there. Did they really use the words TikTok? Because I hear people saying that the people that they promised to help are TikTok. Did they really say TikTok? Because I thought when maybe he misspoke. Maybe he
I'd have
miss.
to look back on that area of the speech because the truth is, I would, and this is the thing, Natalie. The political party with which I'm associated, by
Yeah.
nature, we do not begrudge enterprise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the people who benefit from, their content creation and the taps and roses and the people who come and, because it is just like how you let the money pull up in our dance. So there are folks among us who would see taps and roses and, support to the creative industries and influencers on social media
Mm.
as an unproductive activity. I don't see it as that. I see it as these people are providing value. These
But they
people are
make money.
providing
They make
a
money. Yeah.
product. There you go. And these people, which is the point I'm going on to make, these people are making a fair return. These people are essentially getting all kinds of support from all kinds of angles, including advertising in some instances. I see some people advertising on Mr. Stevens' program. And this is the nature of it, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're on TikTok.
TikTok.
We
Mm-hmm.
know that these people, the activity is fairly lucrative. So
Yes, it
we would have
is.
to hear more, and we trust that traditional media now will be putting these questions to people like Julian Robinson so that we can at least hear more of what is intended before we can fully and appropriately interrogate and critique what is being put forward. But at a minimum, we know that $1 billion to people on social media under the banner of facilitating content creation and creatives, that may not be the most effective and efficient spend of taxpayers' hard-earned resources right now
In a developing country.
in a developing country. And $1 billion is already being provided to really needy tax creatives insofar as our short film and video production industry here in Jamaica.
So I'm glad you said that because there's a difference between that kind of content creation versus the content creation that is done by the
Tina
vloggers
time.
and people like, yeah. So that's why I
Actually,
need more information for sure.
actually,
Hmm?
to to um to be clear, the opposition spokesperson did mention TikTokers and YouTubers. That's why
Oh, so
if
me
we're
I go
going
get a
to
thing too?
well, maybe you need to listen more because I'm gonna say him did single out TikTokers and
Mm.
YouTubers.
Or maybe it's just the
That
ones
is
in
what.
But put
Jamaica.
it this way, Natalie, there may well be a catch, you see.
Mm-hmm.
The support and incentive to be provided may only go to such people as Dre Bryan,
Mm-hmm.
who you have a particular name for. I will not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily repeat that.
No, me talking
Uh,
tomorrow.
when we're on these platforms, we kind of keep it at a certain level.
Mm-hmm. Please.
And others like those. So it may be that they will be targeted or selective in
Mm-hmm.
providing the support. But who knows? It is for them. They are proposing. We already have a program in place to facilitate the creative sector because we know
Mm.
that this is a billions of dollars, a potentially billions of dollars generating and yielding sector. And we
True.
want to encourage that and foster more activity in that
Mm.
regard on the part of our enterprising and industrious creatives in the country in
Oh.
terms of filmmaking and that kind of activity?
Well, it seems like a lot of people had interest in that question, moderator. So thank you for raising it. And to the senator, to the member of parliament and opposition spokesperson on finance, the senator here said provide more detailed and specific information because it's not clear. Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's right. We want to know how it will go. Are you just proposing to take up our money and give it to the people who are advancing your agenda?
Senator, big up yourself and keep doing what
Yeah,
you're doing.
man. Bless up, moderator, and thanks for your good work. You guys are quick on the draw in terms of bringing up the audio or the still shots, the pictures, to enhance and embellish the production that Natalie has going on this platform.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Good night, moderator. Talk soon. All right, here's another call. Hello, good night.
Good night, beautiful.
Thank
How are
you.
you?
Thank you. Welcome. You're live. You have a question for the
Yeah.
senator?
Yeah, man, Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, greetings, Maji.
Yeah, Mr. Morgan, I know what to say. On a don't give Mr. Shine props, you know.
For
On a don't give Mr. Shine props, you know.
what in particular, caller?
Hmm?
For what in particular?
Because I noticed the man them a claim say, Mr. when name former finance minister, him are the man who start the physical discipline. And everybody give Mr. Phillips credit and nobody no give Mr. Shine credit. And Mr. Shine first man me here come with physical discipline thing, you know.
So you want the senator to explain to the audience how Mr. Shaw played his role in that financial?
Yes,
okay,
man. Mr.
all right.
Shaw, the man will come with the first man me here.
All right. Excellent question, caller, because I will concede that not enough communication, as it were, not enough information sharing is done to appropriately situate that period, that September 07 period, right, to the end of 2011 in the public discourse. Because as we know, there are some people among us who may be keen on rewriting history. So just to be clear, when the Bruce Golding-led administration took office in September of 2007, right, there were many things that they set about fixing and doing something about. For example, one of them, sir, was treating with loss-making entities in the country. So we had a divestment initiative and thrust. Caymanas Track Limited, for example, was a costly operation to continue to support and sustain. The government has no business and had no business being involved in Caymanas Track Limited. The policy of the government of the day was that entities like the Sugar Company of Jamaica, the government had no business operating sugar factories. An entity like Air Jamaica, the private sector would be better placed to deal with a national carrier. So one of the assaults that was launched in that 07 period was an assault on what we call loss-making public bodies in the country. Also, Ardeshaw would often refer to it. It is called the re-engagement of our multilateral institutions, because for a period of time in this country, we did not have certain multilateral institutions, for example, the World Bank and the IDB, being as actively involved in Jamaica and supporting projects and financing projects in the country. Because the truth of the matter is that these companies come with, these entities, these multilateral institutions come with certain stringent and certain strictures basically, and certain stipulations. So what Omar Davies had preferred to do during the Patterson years was to essentially raise money for the most part on the international capital markets, as opposed to raising money from the multilateral financial institutions. The idea now, caller, is that the multilateral financial institutions are worthy partners. They are worthwhile partners because the money that you get from them is much cheaper than the money that you get from the international capital markets. So just to be clear,
I remember when Mr. Shah used to tell Omar, say, them people, them
cheaper money available.
and leave the expensive money them where I go look.
Yeah, cheaper money. Yep. So that's the point. Because as you know, caller, and I mean, here in Jamaica, for example, when you take out a credit card, the interest rate that is associated with your credit card is, tends to be fairly high relative to the interest rate that may be associated with your mortgage, for example. So you may get a credit card at 18% or 19%, whereas your mortgage rate may be 8%. So it's a similar thing with the capital markets versus the multilateral financial institutions. I always speak of multilateral financial institutions for the benefit of the viewers, caller. We're speaking of the International Monetary Fund, IMF. We're speaking of the International Bank for Development and Reconstruction, IBDR, which is commonly called the World Bank. We're speaking of the IDB, which is the Inter-American Development Bank. And we're also speaking of the Caribbean Development Bank, the CDB. And of course, as you know, there's the European Union that does a lot of work here in Jamaica and provides a lot of support to us here in Jamaica. Yeah. So you had the re-engagement of the multilaterals. But quickly, Natalie, one other thing I'd like to mention. The reforms that were undertaken in that 07 to 2011 period also included, and it essentially started the very thing the caller is mentioning, which is called fiscal discipline. We had what was called the fiscal responsibility framework, which was managing loss-making public bodies, consolidating government's finances, re-engaging multilaterals, securing cheaper money, because as you know, a country's debt is not the only challenge that a country may have. The cost of servicing one's debt may also be a particular challenge for an individual, because if you owe $10 to somebody and you're paying 10% on the $10, you're paying $1. But if you owe $10 to somebody and you're paying 50% on that $10, you're paying $5. So the cost of servicing a country's debt is also an important consideration, and that is why strategically the Shaw and the Bruce Golding government sought to move in a direction where you secured lower cost financing in the country.
Okay.
And as I said before, there was a fiscal responsibility framework, there was the divestment of Air Jamaica, there was the divestment of the sugar companies of Jamaica, there was the divestment of Cayman Track Limited, CTL, and of course there was the establishment, the institution of a thing called the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act, because Jamaica's public bodies have long been a source of hemorrhaging in terms of public finances in the country. And when the government came with the Public Bodies Management and Accountability Act, it basically mashed up the dolly also did go on and hold these public bodies to more stringent procedures and stipulations to be better stewards of public funds in the country.
Well, thank you, caller, for that question. Very important.
One more question I want to ask Mr. Margaret.
Yeah, not too long, cause other people have to call. You hear, sir? Ask the question. Let the senator answer, and let somebody else come in here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, Mr. Margaret.
Go ahead.
I'm not afraid of East Kingston. I'm not put nobody out there for work East Kingston. No can win East Kingston, you know.
Okay.
All right, noted, caller. Some things we will take offline and consider it in the back office. But thanks for that perspective. You're referring to the constituency of East Rural, of East Kingston and Port Royal.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Thank you, caller.
All right.
Have a good night. Yes. Guys, a few more calls and then we're gonna let the senator go get him rest. Senator, I really appreciate you stopping by. I want you to come and report from the Senate to the people. Maybe once a month at the most. Can you do that for us?
Sure. Yeah, man. All right. I'll show up on that.
Yes.
Because the business that we do, we don't go there to do friend and company business and private business. It's the people's business. We rise a Friday morning time if you go sort out, isn't it?
Yes. It's very important. Let's take this call here. Hello, good night. What question do you have for the senator tonight?
Yeah, good night, Senator. Yeah, I'm calling from England. I watch it show all the time, and we have to give Natalie a lot of credit, Senator.
I concur. She and others were on the forefront, in the front line.
and others. But the center, she done something, and I thank the Prime Minister for listening and go say it on here. And he listened to her. He listened to her. She maybe don't know that, and he get the message to him. And he listened to her, and from that, I see start to do that stuff. But I have a problem what I'm saying to you now. In the education system of Jack's Hill, I have two neighbors that go to Jack's Hill Primary School. They have no principal, only two teachers teaching all the classes.
Wow.
Yeah, that is what is called a multi-grade school, where you do not have a discrete teacher for each discrete grade level or class.
The principal retire February, and the person that's supposed to doing the teacher, she used to do what they call the exam out there now. We used to call it common entrance.
Yeah, man, PEP. It's now called PEP. So it was GSAT. It was common entrance first, then GSAT. It's now called the primary exit profile, PEP.
Right. So what happened? That no one there to teach those kids teach those kids because the principal retire and they don't get no teacher. So I'm asking you to look forward to see that they can get one or two teacher, but a principal and an ex-teacher, because it's rough on the two teachers to teach those 5 grades.
You say it's a primary school?
Yes, it's a primary school.
So I don't think it's a case where they don't have any teacher. It's what is called a multi-grade school, caller. But I note your concern, because what you're saying is that based on what happens at the school, these youngsters, these kids who are in grade 6, they are preparing for PEP. They would have done the ability test in February. They have, in a few days' time, the performance task to do, and then in April they'll be doing
Let him finish the point, Carla. Hold on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
In a few days' time, they have the performance task to do, and then in April they'll be doing the curriculum-based test. Now, the teachers are at the school. However, what you would want is more keen engagement of these sets of students as they prepare to do their exit exams, the PEP exam.
If I could just say something about that real quick. This is not uncommon. It depends on the school.
Because it's Annette Johns. Is Annette that? Yeah, Annette Johns is saying how many students are on roll. So in some of these smaller schools, Carla, especially in very deep rural communities, you have a kind of consolidation in the teaching and instruction realm, such that the teachers, they do provide engagement, they provide optimal engagement and instruction, but it is done in the on the basis of what is called a multi-grade school.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. And I was just gonna say that my daughter went to an Adventist school where we live, and at that school, it is between grades, kindergarten grade to about 8th grade. And because of the school size, there were only 20 students who were members of our church. So they only had one principal who also taught from like grade 4 to 8 and another teacher. So there were only 2 teachers in the school. One of them was a principal, and that's how the school functioned, and it was fine. So it depends on how many students, whether it's a rural area. It's fine. That happens sometimes.
But what I suggest here, Carla, ensure that you're a family member.
Hold on there.
Yeah, you know why I'm not going to say it's fine. I can understand you have a teacher teaching grade 1 and grade 2, and one teaching grade 2 and grade 3 and grade 4. I can understand that. And the next one teach 5 and 6. I could understand that if it was 3 teachers.
How many students are at the school? Do you know?
I think it's 60-something students.
Oh, that's a lot for 2 teachers, though.
And remember, the teachers have to write. The teachers have to write their lesson plans
and so on. Yeah.
Grade 1 for grade 2 and grade 3. So that's really a lot of work on the teachers. I'm not picking up for the teachers.
Anyway, one of the things I'm going to suggest to you as well, Carla, especially as the child that you're bringing to our attention, is finalizing preparations for PEP. When in the context of these multi-grade school, the household has a role to play as well. So parents or guardians for this particular child or children at the school should ensure that they have a level of activism and involvement so that they are going through the work, they're going through material with them to satisfy themselves as well that appropriate levels of engagement and teaching and learning is going on, and help them, of course, to prepare for the external exams, because these are a critical set of exams for these youngsters. It is a high stress, high pressure assessment, and we want the youngsters to be as well prepared as possible to go out and execute ultimately.
Well, thank you, Carla. Thank you for that question.
Yeah, and I beg you, Senator, to please try if you can draw attention to it. I will call my friend Mr. Chuck and find out, because he's here, so I will talk to him.
Okay,
Thank
in
you.
his constituency, so Jacksonville primary. Yeah.
Let's take this other call. Hello, good night. Thank you for joining. Fine, thank you. What question do you have for Senator Morgan?
Well, it's actually a question, I just want to add to something that I think he left out. Regarding the what's his name, the Aldershaw situation.
The Aldershaw legacy, yeah. Go ahead.
The point that I want to make quickly is that Aldershaw was the one who initiated the first index. And that was
that's right. Well, excellent. I don't know how I left that off. Excellent. So just additional caller.
Sorry?
So it's not the first index. Aldershaw instituted what was called the JDX, the Jamaica Debt Exchange.
Right, that's what I'm referring to. Sorry.
When the other folks came to office, they didn't want to call it JDX and to make it JDX Part 2 or JDX 2.0. So they changed it from Jamaica Debt Exchange to National Debt Exchange, because that is how petty our politics can be at times, where you don't even want to come and have a Part 2 to something that was successful as Part 1. So Aldershaw in 2010 it was presided over the Jamaica Debt Exchange, which essentially, in a collaborative and respectful way, invited bondholders to come in and agree to a haircut, not on principal, but on the interest rate that would be applicable to their bond holdings, essentially. And to the credit of the bondholders, including people like Mark Golding and Peter Bunting, I would imagine, they accepted to do that in a spirit of patriotism. Perhaps one of the best things they may have done for Jamaica, quite frankly.
Right, right. And just to add to what you're saying, so he initiated the IMF, and even people at the finance ministry were disgusted by that because they thought it could not work. But in addition to that, I want to also highlight that prior to the JLP coming back into power, I have not heard any discussion regarding the Ponzi scheme, Hold It and Cash Plus. And as you can recall, the devastation it had under PJ Patterson's government. And in my opinion, he did not have any means of correcting that. And I think he threw Portia under the bus because he could not have managed it. In 2005, 2006, inflation was rolling at about 16.8%. The NIR was at 1.96%. Interest rates were above 12%. And the index thing was initially brought down the interest rate. Loan rate, commercial and otherwise, was at 28%, and unemployment was at 13.5%. The point I'm making is that prior to the JLP coming back in power with Aldershaw, all these macroeconomic indicators were at a very terrible state. And I'm not going to blame Portia for it because she only got a year. But I believe that PJ ran away from it and left Portia. And even if Michael Manley was leading PNP at that time, they would have lost the election. Because
which is why, Carla, it's not surprising that for the calendar year 2005, we had in excess of 1,600 murders, the then record in terms of murder tally in any given financial calendar year. Because the idea is that although in 06, 07, I think there was 3.5% economic growth, a lot of that I attribute to the fake economy that we had in terms of this all-in and cash plunge phenomenon, the Ponzi scheme, which ended up having a disastrous effect.
But then a quick point I want to make.
Caller, please let somebody else come in because the senator I have to go to in bed. So I appreciate those questions. Next time when Marlon come back, come on back with us and come and ask a question here.
Oh, quickly. You and I had a discussion the other night, but is it I want to come to? But that's all right.
But thank you, sir. Thank you.
No problem.
Have a good night.
All right.
Just one more call, guys, and then we have to let the gentleman go. Hello, good night. Hello. Hello. Yes.
Good night.
Yes. What question do you have for the senator tonight?
Yeah, more of the senator some serious question about the farming in poorest area. All the elements on that.
Can you limit it to one question, please? Just one question. We have to wrap up soon. Go ahead.
The farmers in poorest area in Manchester.
Yeah.
And that me orderly call fan. Farmer needs some help from the Prime Minister in poorest area as a labourer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. All right. So
answer.
I know the question from the caller. Thanks for that question, caller, because I know that there are many persons who are engaged in production, and as farmers, you are by nature resilient, creative, and enterprising people because you guys get hit by adverse weather situations, for example, passage of burial, sustained rainfall. You also suffer with respect to drought. And so, in terms of your personal situation, sir, I would encourage you and other farmers in the porous area and in places like New Forest and so on to ensure that at a minimum you are registered with RADA so that you can avail yourself of production incentives. You're registered with RADA, Maji?
Are you registered with RADA?
I'm registered, Morgan. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
I'm going to tell you something. I'm being straightforward. I'm all the way to call Nazi and complain about farmer in Porous. Porous a farming committee. You listen to me?
Yeah.
A representation to RADA and politicians do not count in Porous era. And that's why yesterday Mr. Chin get kicked out. That a new man come no can represent him because guess what? The lack of days in Porous era. You cannot have a farming committee and you're not help. You put me cut out your road, Miss Rhoda. And all that I try to get to him. We said Mr. Nation cut your road for you in Manchester when burial blow. The woman said scam, me a scam. Me has big old labor about me a scam. Rude. And if I would take this to task, that'd be a serious issue. So lots of problem been going on. That's why Mr. Chin get kicked out yesterday.
So what you want? What is it that you hold on there, caller, hold on. We have to cut it short, but tell the senator exactly what you want him and
what would you want addressed? Or
about this RADA, nothing for burial come to poorest area yet.
All right. So you want the senator to say what to the Prime Minister?
We want him read the farmers group in Porous. We need some benefit from the farmers group. We register in Porous.
Okay.
We have a register group. We lead by Leo Gart Morrison. So we can tell him the president name.
All right, so caller, what I suggest, your group, as whether it's PMO or what the other group name again, JAS group, ensure that you make contact with your RADA extension officer.
Through Business Society.
Yeah. So make contact with your RADA extension officer and impress upon that person, whether man or woman, that you guys would need support in relation to X, Y, or Z. Because I know one of the things happening as well is that farm roads are being, built. More protection is coming for farmers in terms of agricultural wardens to ensure that man now hallway your planting and hallway your produce generally.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you, caller, for calling.
Okay, nice.
We'll catch up. All right. Yeah, guys. So I want to thank you, Senator Morgan, for stopping by with us. Some very vital information from the budget discussion that's happening to all the
Yeah.
questions that you've answered from our subscribers over here. Welcome back
Indeed.
anytime. Have a good night. Thank you for joining. You
Sure.
want to say
Thanks for
any?
having me, Natalie. And let me just wish for all of your viewers and listeners a good
Mm,
night and a productive rest of work week. It was my pleasure being on, and this won't be the last. Thank you so much, sister. All the best.
you're welcome. Have a good night. Yes, guys. So this was our Senator Marlon, who is fairly new. And you know, a lot of times these discussions that are very important to legislations and the direction of the country and change and all that stuff. A lot of people don't really get to tune into the Senate. So it's good when we have someone that we can ask these questions and have them tell us what is the status of whatever is going on. So that's good. So thank you, Senator, for stopping by. So the struggle now for the PNP is communication. And as you guys saw just a couple of days ago, this woman came out with some video. She's the one who was in charge of the communication over at the PNP, and she came out with a video talking about CIA and from 60s, 70s, 80s. And right now we have things that we need to talk about right now. People have a lot of questions. People want to know a lot of things. There's a lot to talk about policies, status of our economy, where we're going in the next 5 years. These are the things that we want to talk about as Jamaicans. So this is why now, with Mark Golding's admission that the government has been good and strong according to him with communication. This is why we have to let him know that his communication manager is a miscommunicator, as you can see on her sash across her chest. So PNP, we have to go fix up on yourself and come back to the people, because this is not making sense. Information is important. And we don't just really want your information from one side. We want to hear information from everybody. But if you don't have people doing good communication work to be able to relay information to the people, then that kind of make the thing lopsided. We don't want that. We want balance in life. Everything is about balance. I don't think she would come over here. These are not people who are genuine about the things that matter to the nation in terms of government and opposition. These people, they hate me. People like her have no desire to talk to me because I'm a truth speaker and a truth seeker. They can't come over here with any lies and propaganda and them something there. So they don't want to talk to people like me, and that's okay. And that's why they need to probably demote her and put somebody there who can actually do the work of what we know as a good communicator. You understand? Um, this hour now, March, International Women's Month, same way. So over the weekend, I don't know we're creative over here, and we did have to do a look of something like this. So I want to give a special shout out in the Women's History Month here to Auntie Faval. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's, talking about how Faval and the expectation that people had of her. I know everybody was just silently listening and watching to see if Faval was going to come out. And yes, she come out. And as you can see, she come out in a way that, people are still talking about everything that she brought to the debate. So we just want to say, big up. I couldn't find the glasses, moderator. I say, me vex, you see. Can't find the glasses. I'm say if me did ever find the glasses, are right there, so them drop dead. You understand? Yeah. So ladies, we don't know when it come on to the ladies and class, and so we talk about pearls, right? So that we do on the creative side over here. So big up Faval and big up every woman in the parliament doing their work and trying to, you know, empower and, show that women are equally capable of doing what our men have been doing all along. So that is good. Guys, me not hear nobody talk about the police station. The police station, the new police. Me didn't want to put it up on the screen, but me forgot. Want to see the police station? I wonder if I could have put it on the screen. Let me try. Nice, sophisticated. Don't me tell you the last week, say, Westmoreland. And you have to admit, say, the crime in Westmoreland gone down. Is like me I tell? This evening, right before me come on, me see the Jamaica Gleaner put out, say, crime down 30%. Every minute you see them publish, crime down. Me tell you the last week, say, Dr. Chang, I forget him flowers, Me tell Dr. Chang, say, I want to see him in the parliament asleep, because him been working and him tired. So go on in there, no feel no way. All I who want take picture and take camera. Dr. Chang, I want to see you in the parliament arrest because you're tired. You understand? The police station that was just open in Frome. I want to make sure that I show it to you guys before I log off here tonight. Because the sophistication of these police stations is going up across the country. And the heap of police vehicle and so. Where the government get so much money from? Me tell you, say the Prime Minister, if what them saying is true, this Prime Minister is a worthless thief, because you can't thief so. And I do them heap of something here. Well, on the people. Say me can do it a little better. Let me take this off my screen. See it there? Nice. Nice police station. I spoke with a friend from Westmoreland. And she told me that she was at the ceremony, the groundbreaking opening ceremony. And she said, me not lie, Wanna me look up PMP friend too, Pick up yourself, friend, me know you're there on the live. And she said to me, say, girl, the crime don't you gone down, Guys, couple of years ago, I believe it was around 2017, may I drive from Manchester, go down in a Westmoreland. I got some family in Westmoreland and I like to stop there and spend some time at the beach and so. And I was driving from Manchester to Westmoreland. I had some kids in the car. And I never forgot. Come down in a Westmoreland, some police and some soldier jump out in the road. Because state of emergency, And the man them find some big gun pan we, And they pick them in the car, they frightened, So me I say, what is wrong with you now? Me start going bad already, but the police explained to me, say, a state of emergency, and them a do spot check and everything. But say, but me have the kids them in the car, no can't point long gun pan people, so, But it is what it is. You got to do what you got to do, and, we ended up parting on a respectful manner, and them explained to me everything, because I never know. See, I saw the thing I go on in a Westmoreland. On that same trip, one Saturday morning, I prepare for go to the beach down where the beach name again, look up past Sandals there, so. Lord Jesus, me not remember, me soon tell you. And as I pull out at the gate, so some people cross the road, say, don't come out. Don't come out shooting down at the market. So I say all of that to say, Westmoreland was hot a couple of years ago. And all who come from Westmoreland, you know. But the Bluefields Beach, yes. One of the most beautiful beaches on the coast there. And this Saturday morning, the man crossed the road. He have one style cross the road from where I was staying. And as soon as I pulled out the car, he said, no, man, don't come out yet. Because I was staying not far from the market. And police and gunman in a shootout and so. About 8 o'clock in the morning, me I tell you, you know. And me I say, no man, then I always small and I go on so. But thank God for the good work of the police and the soldier, heads of police security forces. They have managed to lower the homicides in Westmoreland, and I hope that it continues to trend down. Let me just read a bit of what the Jamaica Gleaner reported. Jamaica recorded 158 homicides between January 1st and March 15th this year, a 30% decline in homicides compared with the similar period last year, according to latest police data, that is. The serious crime statistic published Sunday by the Jamaica Constabulary Force show that 13 homicides were recorded over the last week between March 8th and March 15th, bringing the total so far this month to 41. These are not great numbers, but we have to acknowledge that there is a decrease, and this is the latest statistics. 30% decrease. So you see at the end of April now, we want to hear 50%, and we want to continue good on and good on till the end of the year. That's how we want it go. We can't bother with them something here, people. So I just want to applaud the police force. I have family in the police force, you know. Yeah, man. And them are do a good job. Dr. Chang, big up yourself. Dr. Kevin, the police commissioner, big up yourself. And all those who have been doing the work. Sometimes we criticize the police and we say this and we say that. But half of we attack, we don't go to the police them work, you know. We don't know what true me attack, you know. Half of we wouldn't go out there go put his life on the line every single day of the week. And in some of these volatile communities, it's like being in a war zone daily. Some of these volatile communities, this is not policing, this is war. You understand? And police have to go in at that and plan to survive and go back home to them family. So they are doing a very dangerous job. Anywhere where you see crime is high, police and soldier, their lives are at heightened risk. So we must give credit to these guys. And also, I don't know if this make any sense, but I'm going to say it anyway. The people them who decide to put down the gun are the right thing on to do. Jamaica no worse than away, you know. I want to stop it, you know. All who want align to gang and them something there. Don't do that. So this is good news. And from it come from the Jamaica Gleaner, Pooper, Jesus. Good night, 411. Big up yourself. We did the maths and the budget balanced. It depends on our unruly people being fined, though. Government looking for about 34 billion from them. Ah, Jesus. Oh, it started from Anderson. Jamaica, nice now, my girl. Everyone can come now. Jamaica, sweet. Hey, you know, so a whole heap of land there, Jamaica, though, people. Who never drive in some places, in some of the most rural parts in Jamaica. And you wonder, when are they going to develop these lands? Look all right there, so. A whole heap of land that stretch gone way over there, so, you know. Me not hear nobody really talk about police car and police vehicle from where they. Because the amount of police vehicle me see come in 50 odd car, 120 bike, truck, all kind of sitting. Right? We have built up our infrastructure, our security forces. This is good. So any little decrease, we're here for it. We're happy about it. And we just want to see the continuation of homicides trending down. Well, it's been a pleasure, guys, as usual. Make sure that you're sharing our content. Make sure that you are inviting your friends to this channel. We're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers this year, It is highly possible because we put out good content over here. You understand? Jamaica 411. What you have to say about miscommunication? E41. Oh, God. Yeah, man. Clarendon, St. Anne, St. Catherine, lots of land. Yeah, man. Don't forget Trelawney, Some land there, Trelawney. They may have to cut out more road, though. But when you look on land, electric burst. Me not gonna make gonna get me in trouble tonight. Get me in trouble tomorrow night, but not tonight. Miscommunication. What am I gonna do about the communication, though, God? What PNP is going to do about the communication? Look here, guys. At the final thing this me I go say tonight before me log off. Take sleep and mark that. You see, same like how the PNP can take up miscommunication and put in a them communication and then I go ball say the JLP communication winning. At the same way, them going to take up unqualified people, underperforming people, and put in a ministries in a job. Hey, people, make sure someone do the right thing. You hear me I tell you no? And a joke me I make. And not because me hate the people them. I because me no want Jamaica go down and get no worse. You understand? When you no put them down, you can't take them out so easy, Because at any normal employer would have already fired and demoted this woman for miscommunication. Our manager come out and said the communication now going good. The JLP is winning. Mr. Marlon Morgan is winning. But they're not going to demote her. They cannot demote her because these people that come to the leadership of the PNP are colluded to sabotage them leader and them party, and they have become a cult movement. So they cannot trouble she, right? As she about Bunting girlfriend this, So they cannot trouble them if they keep the miscommunication there and go back to the diaspora. I see or something. Now, this right here is what you will have in government if they should weasel their way into Jamaica people government. This is what you will have. Incompetence. As a matter of fact, don't take my word for it. When you go and go do it and see what happen. By the way, Lawrence Rowe, see up on the chat tonight. Big up yourself. Guys, when you big up Lawrence Rowe in the chat, I say Lawrence Rowe stop by here. Figure you have strength over here. So big up yourself, Lawrence. We like you. Oh my gosh. Lawrence Rowe is one of the most soft-spoken, most self-controlling, the most composed, even under pressure. When me hear Lawrence under pressure, him still a hold him composure. And look how Leighton Campbell go on the platform. When him say, all is not well according to Mr. Garden. All is not well. When you look how Leighton lose him head on the platform. And Mr. Lawrence hold him composure right through. Mr. Lawrence rather ball than forgot they got embarrassing himself. Lawrence rather ball. Right? Than forgot they go lift up him frack and cuss like that one here. Me like Lawrence. Me don't know about him, but me like him. Me like people who have self-control. Because sometimes we are human being, Sometimes some things that man we can't hold it. You understand? We lash out and go on bad. But Lawrence never lost his composure. That's good. So, The miscommunication people them make the nation know what not gonna do because you can't go in an election with miscommunication and them sitting there, you know. Not gonna work. Lawrence, if you want to talk to me over here one night time, give me a call. See the people them are big you up here, and me alone like you. Everybody like you. Give me a call sometime and tell me what you're doing and what go on. Over here, you are a real man. More man than this one up on the screen. Me not getting a joke, you know. Me I come down my bed, people. Thank you all so much for joining. Make sure now share the content. Thank you for liking our video. And we'll come back tomorrow. Very interesting week ahead. The Prime Minister is going to speak. We'll hear more. And Mr. Morgan, thank you again for coming. And if anything come out of the Senate, just, let us know. Prime Minister Julian is going to do your work, sir. Just do the right thing. Once you do the right thing, we don't have no problem with you. Guys, we'll catch up. Take care of yourselves until next time.
Jamaica politics and cover. Big up yourself because you don't know you will discover. Natalie, you're bigger than George Washington Bridge and Island Empire State Building. Straight to the ceiling. Sin, Lord of mercy. Jamaica is not a place to go all. Not when certain guys in control. Jehovah God no. Lord of mercy. Hey. Some say that them are dieting. And them must suffer to hell no rotted. Natalie, more you big up yourself. Right now because you're rougher than them. Hey, they must say that them are dieting. And they must suffer to hell no rotted.